Another Wednesday's come and gone, and I've got some comics. Let's talk about them. Hey, welcome to 9 Panel Grid. This week, we've seen heroes up against the ropes, hallucinogenic nightmares, and a mad scientist janitor. But we're going to kick things off this week with Absolute Green Lantern number 2, written by Al Ewing with artwork by Janoy Lindsay. I'm still struggling with this book here after 2 issues, and I feel like I really dig the pitch more than I dig the execution of the book that we've been delivered so far. It is definitely a horror-centric, manga-inspired version of the Green Lantern mythos within this absolute universe, and that sounds awesome. That sounds like something that should really excite me, but it kind of doesn't so far. We're delivered an ensemble cast, and I think that's part of where this book is really missing it for me, is that to do an ensemble cast type of book, there needs to be a hook. There needs to be a level of care that you have with all of the characters that are being introduced to you, and I don't really get that from Al Ewing's writing so far. We have Hal Jordan, who is struggling with this dark entity that has kind of taken over his body and is maybe trying to make him do certain things that is outside of the character of Hal Jordan that we know. And then we have the greater cast of like all of these other Green Lantern centric heroes, which I just don't care about at this point. And that's a difficult thing because you need to have that heartbeat of a story, and we're not getting that. On top of that, the visuals, again, I'm struggling with those as well. There is definitely a level of influence with manga. I do like, the Green Lantern that kind of empowers our hero in the normal universe, Abin Sur. He looks like straight out of a Dragon Ball Z type of storyline, and that's kind of cool. That's kind of where it ends for me, though. Every other character feels kind of expressionless, lifeless, and the color palette for me is probably the biggest thing that I struggle with because everything falls so flat. Everything is dreary and like devoid of color. This would almost like look better as a black and white comic book if I'm being completely honest. It's just not doing it for me. I think this is one of the weaker issues. This is definitely the one that I'm having the least amount of joy coming out of the Absolute Universe with this particular series so far. But what am I missing? Let me know in the comments down below. Next up, we have Amazing Spider-Man number 3, written by Joe Kelly with artwork by Pepe Larraz. I really enjoyed this issue. I feel like it's been getting better and better with each new issue that we're given here. I was very trepidatious with Amazing Spider-Man, and I still do have there's quirks within this issue that I don't necessarily enjoy to the fullest, but I think that overall it was a success. Let's talk about what I didn't necessarily enjoy first and foremost. The character of Itsy Bitsy feels so, I don't know, of a time, and it's definitely written for a particular age group. If you dig on the humor stylings of Deadpool, which this character is intrinsically ingrained with, you're going to dig this character. For me, I could take it or leave it, and it feels just like so, I don't know, out of place within the greater narrative of the story that we're being delivered. It's integral. That character is integral with what's happening within the story, but it doesn't necessarily feel like they need to be there. The other weird thing about this issue is that I never thought I would agree with Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, but here I am when he says something like, "Hearing your story out loud, Peter, sounds utterly idiotic." And I'm like, yeah, it kind of does when we're delivered it in this mechanism, but that's also part of like the joyous nature, the humorous nature of this story as well, which I think Joe Kelly really does a fantastic job leaning into. We get a lot of those kind of moments that really kind of bring a levity to the story that is absolutely needed. Pepe Larraz on the artwork here, I was very critical early on. Issue number 2, I felt like it took a step forward. Issue number 3, I feel like takes another step forward, and it's getting better and better and better now. So we have, it seems like he's getting his foot underneath him, or his footing. But time will tell on this one. I still don't necessarily know how I feel about the story. I do love the flashbacks, seeing a rebellious teen version of Peter, which I think is like the biggest new factor that we're getting out of this. That's the exciting portion of this. So that really, really makes me happy. The rest of it, time will tell. With a new miniseries wrapping up, let's talk Black Canary, Best of the Best number 6, written by Tom King with artwork by Ryan Sook. I feel like each issue of this series has gotten better and better and better. This is no different. I really love what they've been able to do with this series. And at first, the framing device of the entire series, where each issue was a boxing round between Black Canary and Lady Shiva, at first, I didn't necessarily like it because they leaned so heavily into the narrative of the commentators of the boxing match. Here, as the series went on, though, they kind of pulled further and further away from that as they delivered, character studies and background and flashback scenes that really dove into Black Canary's past, her interactions with her mother, the deals that are being struck between her and Vandal Savage. And this issue kind of does the same, and it kind of gets us to the point where we get to the end, and it plays out in a way that isn't necessarily totally unpredictable. It puts a bow on things very nicely, and that's almost a critique that I have of the book. I wish they made the hard decisions rather than the nice decisions. It does do a really great job bringing us a satisfying ending. I just maybe kind of hoped that they would have been a little bit harsher with the toys that they were playing with, if that makes sense. Ryan Sook's artwork is fantastic on it, though. Very expressive, very full of emotion. And when it comes to the boxing match, these two fighters look gnarly as they are just beating the hell out of each other here, page after page after page. As an issue, it was very successful. As a series, I think it was very successful. Let me know what you think down below. Next up, we have Captain Planet #1, written by David Papos with artwork by Iman Casalos. This was a really good reintroduction to all of the characters that we know and love if you're of my same age group and you grew up with, cartoons like Captain Planet. This did a really good job at rebooting that universe and re-delivering all of the main players that you've come to know from that cartoon, but doing so in just a slightly different manner. Not totally different, but just tweaked enough here to make this new and fresh and exciting. This feels like a more matured version of the cartoon that we would have gotten. There's a little bit of grit there, not enough to stray this book away from a younger audience, but it gives it enough nuance that an older audience is still going to pick it up and appreciate it for more than what it was in its cartoon iteration. Artwork in here is really fantastic. I feel like they emulate the feelings of the cartoon, albeit making it again a little bit more grounded, a little bit more mature looking. I really like the style change that they had here from the cartoon to the comic book here. David Papos, again, is crafting a really nice story that kind of gives us those subtle changes with each one of our players here, each one of our ring bearers, and kind of the motivations, the ticks that they have, and why they were chosen for the individual powers that they have. Some of them are kind of like on the nose and you totally get it right from the beat. Some of them, they really take the character that we kind of know from the cartoon, and they there's a little twist in them that is really exciting for me. I can't wait to see how they re-explore that in future issues here. But in regard to this, it's a very foundational issue. It kind of sets the stage for what we're going to get, and that's the sign of a really good issue #1. So Captain Planet #1 is totally worth picking up. Next up, let's talk Far Down Below #2, written by Chris Condon with artwork by Gagay Shal. I'm starting to get the tone and the vibe for this book now, as the second issue totally does a better job at kind of explaining what the story is all about and where we're going to be going. This is definitely kind of like if this were a movie, it would definitely be an 80s movie directed by Ivan Reitman or Richard Donner or something like that. This has a Goonies feel. You're going to hear that a lot. It definitely strikes that Goonies vibe here, where you have a couple foul-mouthed kids who fall into some danger here, go on some wild adventures, and, there's a lot of fun and a lot of excitement that comes along the way. That's exactly what you're getting within this book. So, our two children characters, they went into the house that was owned by one of their families here, and it's kind of been left abandoned. It's kind of been like the haunted house of the town. They go there, they fall into a pit underneath, and what they find is that one of the characters' grandfathers has basically been living in the tunnels that exist underneath this house for, decades at this point. Everyone thought him to be dead, but he's been surviving under these, within these tunnels. And now the only way that they can get out of there, as a fire is started in the house above, is to go far down below, just like the title says. So it starts exploring the Hollow Earth ideas that were really presented really in a great way in issue number one. Now it's taking that foundational issue one and the character motivations in issue number two. We're bringing all those together here, and we're starting to be able to deliver what the mission statement of this book is and where these children and their grandfather are going to have to go to get out of these tunnels. So again, it's a fun, light-hearted book. There's danger and excitement, but it's nothing that's going to be, I don't know, absolutely crazy and zany, unless you're looking for something, again, like that 80s movie vibe. That totally delivers here. So Far Down Below number two definitely did it for me. This week is full of endings, so let's talk Grommets number seven, written by Rick Remender and Brian Posehn with artwork by Brett Parsons. Man, I wasn't ready to let this series and this storyline go. As the series has progressed, I've really loved every single character, and I feel like I know these people. I feel like I hung out with them when I was a kid. Like, it feels very real. This world that they've developed here in the Northern California 80s landscape here, it just feels right. It feels real, and we're letting it all go now. The children have basically, they've gotten past the fight that happened at the house. They've gotten through the party that had seen the jocks really take control and, kind of wreak havoc all over the place here. And now we're coming to the fact that one of these people, our character Rick, is now moving away. There's no getting around it. There's no getting away from it. Phoenix is definitely something that's going to be happening. And they're dealing with the ramifications of what that means and what it means to be separated from friends, especially at the formative ages, when you're a teenager or a preteen, and what that really means and how that impacts you. It really puts a nice little bow on that. Again, every character feels real. It does give you a little bit of the storybook ending here, which I'm not necessarily disliking it, but it doesn't. It takes that real factor away, because I wish that everything worked out perfectly in real life, but we all know that it doesn't. Now, knowing that this is kind of a reshaping and retelling of Rick Remender and Brian Posehn's childhood antics that they got into, if this truly worked out in real life, that's fantastic, and I wish I would really know that, because that would totally reframe this entire ending for me. We'll see if that's really the case here. I'm sure there'll be stories and interviews that come out here, but as a single issue, very satisfying. Loved how they kind of wrapped this all up here. And again, I love that these characters we can kind of go back to them and continue to see what kind of antics they get into. Next up, we have the triumphant return of Kaya with issue number 26, written and drawn by Wes Craig. This was a great issue. It does a really good job at kind of catching us up with things that have been happening in the past of these entire previous 25 issues, and it does a good job also taking just a small time jump here and kind of retelling you or showing you where these uneasy alliances and where these relationships exist right here and right now between Kaya, her brother Jin, and the demigod Razel. This trio of characters who have formed this alliance on their adventures. And it really does a good job. This is like a character defining kind of issue. It does a great job here kind of showing where Jin is at, as he is the prophesized golden child, and his relationship that is getting more and more straight with Kaya and is becoming closer and closer with Razel. But what this issue does that's different than previous is that it really kind of shapes that relationship between Razel and Jin, and it makes you question whether or not Kaya is being overly distrusting of this character. It feels like there is a very real, very genuine, I don't know, kinship between those two characters. Now, we know that Kaya has had the prophecy not to trust Razel, but nothing has really come to fruition there. He's always kind of been maybe a little bit late to the play, but he's always been there to help out when needed. So it's a very interesting dynamic that Wes Craig is delivering on this. On top of that, you have the looming threat of the Atrians, as they have now basically been betrayed by Lord Vox. And Lord Vox has his own machinations going on here, as basically he's kind of gone astray. He's trying to basically prove himself still, but it's not necessarily towards the Atrians themselves as much as trying to prove himself to himself. So we'll see where that progresses and goes. It gives us a nice little look into all of these different factions and how everything is going to be interacting in the future here. So this was a great reintroduction to the character, and again, a great character development issue to kind of show where the landscape is for each one of these people. All right, let's talk The Moon is Following Us, number 9, written by Daniel Warren Johnson with artwork by Riley Rossmo. This was a fast-paced issue. So fast, in fact, that if you were driving the car on this, the pedal is not just to the metal. They broke through the floorboard on this. It is action-packed. All we get in this issue is really the attempt to save the daughter character here by the parents, and an all-out war between the toys and imagination and all of the things that have been holding this daughter hostage, basically, and the nightmare creatures. It is 100% the fight between these two factions, and it plays out stupendously. All of the different ideas and different memories that have been playing against the parents, all of that comes to head. They have really great things that happen here. I don't want to give too much away here, but there's a lot of revelations that happen. There's a lot of conclusions to some of the things that have been holding them back. It was a great penultimate issue. I feel like it does what every great Daniel Warren Johnson story does, which is pulls at your heartstrings and delivers you things that you weren't necessarily expecting, but are so emotionally impacting that it's something that you don't get from every comic that you get from the stands here. Wonderful issue, man. It sets the stage for a great finale. I can't wait to see how this wraps up. Moon is following us. Number 9 here was a really, really strong contender for top comic of the week. Next up, we have Poison Ivy, number 33, written by G. Willow Wilson with artwork by Marcio Takara. This is a really beautiful character study type of issue that we're being delivered here, as it's kind of the beginning of a new arc. It's kind of like this in between arc, basically, as now Marshview, the town that's Pamela and Janet and Killer Croc, they've all been residing there, has now been kind of renovated. It's been brought up and it's in harmony with nature. And it's kind of like the perfect formulation of everything that Poison Ivy has ever wanted in her life. It's still outside of the scope of anyone's kind of sight and knowledge. And it's just, again, it's something that is self sustaining in every way that you would expect her to want. But you know that every single time a character gets what they want, it is so quickly taken away. And that's so true for what happens in this issue here. Um, Again, we have characters that are at play here, that motivations and alliances are now changing and things are kind of just progressing in very interesting ways here. That Janet from HR, her character and her arc has been incredibly, I don't know, nuanced and stunning recently, as she's kind of been put into danger more often than not. And she is very clearly in danger in this issue. And her knowledge of how Pamela wants to basically move forward with that and how she is willing to help in maybe not the fullest form really impacts how this issue moves forward. It's all about the character drama and the relationships, and it's handled so beautifully here by G. Willow Wilson narratively and Marcio visually. That combination is really firing on all cylinders within here, and I'm so glad that this series continues to progress here after 33 issues. I don't think anyone saw this lasting this many issues, but I'm so glad that it has. So keep it up, keep delivering this story. It From the look and feel of everything, we still have ways to go, and we still have a lot more interesting things to explore with the gray, the green, the nature of everything that's happening here. I can't wait to find out what all this means here, especially with Janet from HR. So Poison Ivy number 33, really great book. Next up, we have Savage Sword of Conan number 8, the anthology magazine format series here from a variety of different writers and artists. This was like arguably the most varied issue that we've gotten so far from Savage Sword. As the previous issue, we had almost the entirety of it done by Roy Thomas, and it was a really great exploration of the character and a really fantastic, long form story that got to be told from Roy Thomas, the guy that was like really known for Conan in its time at Marvel. This one is like almost the and complete opposite. I feel like we've gotten the most smaller form stories in any issue of Savage Sword of Conan within this one right now, but all of them really strike well. I think some of the standouts of this issue was definitely Chris Burnham's artwork in here in the very first story that sees kind of Conan drug into basically a rescue that he wasn't necessarily ready to become part of here. A couple other standouts here: Liam Sharp doing the writing and artwork, I believe, here on a story where Conan basically becomes the he's kind of drawn into a battle. He's kind of manipulated into a battle between a wounded warrior here from the north, and it's basically an exploration of what honor and an honorable death means, but also through the means of manipulation. Really cool stuff. They're great visuals here. The other thing too is that Jim Zub has a poem that he's written with a wonderful pinup page here by Dan Panosian. It looks fantastic. This issue is full of pinups, each one of them gorgeous in their own specific way here. Savage Sword of Conan, I really liked what they had in the previous issue. This one was very different, but still totally entertaining. Next up, we have Storm number 8, written by Miraway Ayodele with artwork by Lucas Wernick. This one felt like a step back kind of issue where it's kind of like resetting the table for the character of Storm and all of the storylines that are taking place here. As we've gotten a lot of different things that have been happening here with basically her time and place as an Avenger, her time and place with, the United Nations and being a representative for mutantdom, basically. Her cosmic powers, her interactions between Doom. There's been so much going on with this story, and it's been handled so wonderfully by Miraway that it really kind of needed like a pause moment and kind of like, okay, let's set the table again. Let's reset the stakes and kind of level set for everyone to make sure that they know where we're going from here. That's exactly what this issue is. It kind of brings Storm back into a place where she can jump off from, basically. And bringing Lucas Wernick back here as the main artist here delivers fantastic visuals here. I think he has a really great visual language for the character of Storm here and all of her power sets that she's, basically been able to garner both, cosmically and her mutant powers themselves. I will say, though, it was heavy lifting to be able to do that, considering you had all these different things happening. To level set again, it made this issue feel a little bit whiplashy as you're jumping from place to place to place as they're trying to explain and kind of get back to a core idea of Storm. So that was my only critique of the issue. But through and through, this feels like the most successful Marvel comic that hits stands month over month as far as an ongoing goes. So Storm number 8, again, sets the table really nicely. I'm really excited more so, though, for what comes next. Rounding out the trifecta of finales here, let's talk Two-Face number 6, written by Christian Ward with artwork by Fabio Veras. You've heard me say it twice before, and I'm going to say it one more time this week. This delivers a great ending, but it delivers the easy ending. It's the storybook ending. Maybe I'm just feeling like I want something harsh to happen to these characters. Maybe it's my mindset right now, but I feel like with the exploration that we had with the character of Harvey and the character of Two-Face, kind of really dividing them into two separate entities in a great way, I really wanted something big and bold out of the finale here. I wanted this series to be the place that takes Two-Face into a new, exciting arena here. But what it really does is it kind of brings us back. It kind of brings that character back to its, original roots and original origins. And maybe that was the mission statement all along. It's just that the gravity and the nature of the story that we got with each and every previous issue really delivered something fantastic and nuanced and bold for the character that I wanted that for the ending. And it kind of fell short for me in that tone and that feeling. That's not to say it's bad necessarily, but I feel like it could have been something more than what it was, what we were delivered, basically. The visuals here remain stunning. I really like Fabio's artwork on here. The colors remain bold and like bright and like they pop, especially when you're dealing with the character of Two-Face, whether it's through his mental mind of Harvey Dent or when he's truly in the real world and he's overtaken the body of Harvey Dent. Really great visuals on here, really great visual language and colors that are being used. It was a really great exploration of the character. I just wish there was something a little bit more. I don't know how else to say it here. But overall, I have to say I was very satisfied with the finale here. Let me know what you were thinking down below. All right, let's talk Ultimate Wolverine number 5, written by Chris Condon with artwork by Alex Linz. So the previous couple issues I feel like have been very, loose and free flowing, especially the last issue that was kind of like an homage to the Weapon X storyline by Barry Windsor Smith that really delivered kind of like not necessarily the origin story of how Wolverine became the Winter Soldier, but kind of like, I don't know, a look inside the mentality of that character as all of these things were actually happening, as that manipulation was occurring. This issue, though, was like the antithesis of that. This was definitely a plot driven story that was pushing the narrative forward, that was giving you kind of like the new level set of everything that was happening here and where the character is going to be taken. And it was done so through the lens of the character of Victor Creed, or this iteration of Victor Creed within the Ultimate Universe. And it was absolutely fantastic. Let's talk about the artwork first. We don't have Alessandro Capuccio on the artwork, but Alex Linz, who I know best from his work on the book Briar that came out with Boom Studios, I was really excited to see his name attached because I thought that they could do fantastic work. And lo and behold, it was really, really good. I think for an artistic change, this was the right change to make for the right story and the right characters. Really great set pieces that they deliver here with the fight between Logan and Sabretooth here. That's delivered in a fantastic way. And if you watch Ink and Insights here on Wednesdays with me and Stu from Dr. Doom's fan club, you already know I'm a big fan of the heroic version of Sabretooth. That's, Age of Apocalypse version. I think that was a fantastic iteration of the character, and you definitely get big, big, big vibes of this character being very similar to that iteration here within the Ultimate Universe, which made me so happy. Really great issue here. It brings in more pieces of the greater Marvel universe in the Ultimate Universe here, and mutantdom as well, as it's really only taking place within two parts of the world here, one being Japan and one being Russia. So the world is widening now. We're getting more of a scope of what's happening here, and it really sets the stage for something cool to happen here, as you have to imagine that Wolverine is not going to remain the brainwashed version that he is forever and ever. This maybe pushes the pieces on the chessboard a little bit closer to having the real Logan back. All right, let's talk Vanishing Point #1, written by Mark Russell with artwork by Juan Doe. If you've read other pieces of indie work by Mark Russell, this feels very in line with what I assume his mentality is on a lot of different things in the real world, especially things like traveling to Mars. He has a very dark, very cynical look at basically the nature of organizations and corporations and their influence over humanity, and basically the means that it takes to make a buck in this world. That's what this issue is all about, as we're delivered this story of this man who takes a 10-year contract to go out into space to do basically asteroid mining. But as time goes on, you start to realize kind of the nature of the mission that he's been placed on, and you're kind of delivered stories of the previous people who have gone into space here, and how they've, some of them haven't made it back all the way intact, and some of them have had these bouts of, perceived insanity, which they called going ahab basically. And this story delivers kind of like the storyline of that 10 years in a very compressed version, but you kind of see how the interaction of that character goes, and you start to see the level of influence that the corporation and his job have, his, the means to an end basically to make a living with this 10-year contract. Really great really great stuff here that's being delivered. It's very in tune and in vein with Mark Russell's previous work, so if you dug that, you're really, really, really going to dig this. Also, the great thing is that with the nature of this series being an anthology, this is a one and done story, and they tell the complete story from start to end in a very concise, fantastic way. You're not felt like you're wanting more, and it opens up the door for having new inventive ideas come out with each and every issue. So Vanishing Point #1 was a really great introduction to this anthology world. With my runner-up pick of the week, let's talk Absolute Superman #7, written by Jason Aaron with artwork by Carmine Di Giamenico. I didn't think I was going to enjoy this issue as much as I did, but man, I kind of loved it. This is going to be what I feel like is a very divisive issue amongst the comic reading community, as it's going to be one of those things that you either really love or really hate. This issue is all about Brainiac. This is kind of the origin story of the absolute version of Brainiac, and what we're delivered is a mad scientist version. This has big, big, big vibes of like Frankenstein, and it's told through like his entire storyline, where it's the greater universe of Brainiacs, the hive mind knowledge, and he originates as basically the janitor of the Brainiacs, where he is just taking the scrap pieces of other Brainiac creatures who no longer function, and he is put in place to dispose of them. but through means that we don't necessarily understand fully, he becomes basically Brainiac Prime. And when he does so, it is the damaged, broken, very cruel version of the Brainiac that we're delivered here, which is absolutely maniacal. When we see him in present day and what he does to the soldiers of the Lazarus Corporation, how he toys with them and manipulates them and destroys them, is gross and like gnarly and awesome. Though it was great visuals that were delivered in this issue to kind of play on those ideas. Great narrative by Jason Aaron. Absolute Superman is just one of those like series that I feel like it started as like an okay thing, and it's gotten better and better and better as the series and the universe has grown here. You can't say that with each and every issue of most comics, let alone the Absolute Universe, but this one you definitely can. I'm really excited to hear what everyone has to say about this issue, because again, I feel like it's going to be something that you either love or hate. But as far as I'm concerned, I love this issue. And with my top comic of the week, let's talk Resurrection Man #2, written by Ram V with artwork by Anand RK. If you know me, you kind of know my likes, my dislikes, the books that really get me excited, and specifically the creative teams that get me excited. Ram V and Anand RK are basically like the center square on a bingo card here. It's just the free space. If they put out a comic book, they've never let me down. I've always enjoyed it so thoroughly, and this is just more of the same. The way that we're crafting the storyline of this character who has died and now can perceive and manipulate time based on the power set that he's given as the Resurrection Man is really great. It's really, I don't know, it's a really bold and exciting idea, and they keep delivering on that idea, especially now with issue #2 as they look back into a separate part of his timeline and his history that starts explaining kind of like the greater storyline of him as a character and his time as he's escaped the war, and how he is navigating this murky world outside of time, and how he is, I don't know, developing friendships and relationships, but he knows that they won't last and they can't last because he is immortal and they are not. And kind of the heartfelt moments that they have between those two, between all of these things happening, basically. It's showing like the breaking down and also the reintroduction of new relationships that are built out of old ones here. Ram V just kind of crafts the story in such a great way. Now, that's the story of the Resurrection Man, the title character here. But what the story also delivers is more of the villainous character now that we were introduced to in issue #1, and this really starts explaining the nature of why he's still around, what he's doing, and how he is basically moving forward as a antagonist basically to our protagonist. And it is really nasty and really gruesome what he is moving forward with, what his ideas are. And if you read issue #1, you've already gotten an inkling, but this just really drives it home what it is that they're doing and how bizarre and gruesome it's going to get. The visuals in here are stunning. Anand RK is doing fantastic work here. He is an artist that should be at least spoken of in the same vein as people like Martin Simmons and their relationship with James Tynion, right? It's that type of artistic quality that's being brought to the pages of Resurrection Man and each and every project that he does. Beautiful work, stunning story, great visuals. This is going to be a special book. This is already in my mind as one of those top comics of the year contender type of things here. If they keep progressing this with the next 4 issues where the 6-issue series ends, this is going to be absolutely special. So don't miss out on it. So that's what I've got for you this week, but I'm more curious. What did you read and what were your thoughts? Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe and be part of the panel. Leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week.